Well, my lord, immolation, that was a great video. Made a lot of great points, and I can't really disagree with the idea that memes, or the meme is a useful uh, way of understanding how we do what we do. Um, it's a useful way of describing it. Um, and then it says it's like a universal acid, natural selection, that is. And so, applying natural selection to the exchange of human ideas um, is just as effective as applying it to biological evolution, because they're both fundamentally uh, mechanical processes. Or at least we can talk about them in that way very effectively. We can't live in an ecosystem very effectively thinking of it that way, but we can certainly think about it effectively. And that's the rub, really. That's why I'm not so much attacking the idea of a meme. The problem is really with the biology of population genetics. Not with that field of biology itself, but just that it is a field. It is an approach to understanding biology and evolution that focuses in on one perspective, and that is the DNA molecule. And so it talks about organisms as though they are what the genes make, and the genes are the ones who are in control, or the ones that are selected, at least. And germ lines are completely isolated from somatic lines of cells. There's no acquired characteristics. There's no Lamarckian evolution, not even culturally, because it's not our bodies that are changing when we take on new ideas from the mimetic perspective. It's just our minds. And what is the mind? It's an imitator. It's just a replicator that has arisen on top of the DNA replicator. But the problem isn't that the mimetic idea, as I said, isn't useful when applied to culture. It's that the genetic idea, when applied to biology, while also useful, is not the truth. It's not the one monolithic, almost monotheistic truth about the nature of evolution and biology. It's a particular perspective, and applying that particular perspective to cultural development and evolution and communication is another perspective. But you see, we're talking when we do this type of philosophy, really, because you can't really have a science of mimetics. You can have a philosophy of mimetics. But when you do that, you're automatically requiring that this new level of self-consciousness arise, because it's no longer just memes. All of a sudden, there's this something or other that knows that there are memes, that knows that all the ideas that it speaks and shares are really just replications. There's no actual creativity coming out of my mind. I'm just aping my companions, my society, my TV, the books that I've read. And again, it's not that this isn't true, in part. I just think it's silly to ignore. Well, for example, if we start from a different biological premise that says that not only is there more than natural selection that goes into, how should we put it, ordering nature, but that there's more than genes as well. I mean, that's the first step. We don't understand, or we don't have a theory of morphological development. So when the neo-Darwinian says genes make organisms, makes is a huge gesture of uncertainty. Yeah, it makes proteins. It makes messenger RNA that makes proteins. And of course, you need proteins already to help to, maintain the fidelity of the DNA by repairing it, but also to replicate it from the beginning. DNA can't replicate itself. It needs proteins to do so. It needs the intracellular matrix to do anything. It's nothing in and of itself. It's just a crystal. And so without an understanding of morphological development first, and then without applying ecology to evolution, we come up with something like the selfish gene theory, which says that everything is competition. Nature is one endless, Red Queen arms race. And we completely ignore or reduce to nothing either just natural selection in disguise or a complete accident, cooperation. We say that any symbiosis is an accidental, it's an accidental thing that occurs just because organisms happened to align themselves in that way. And this is really just, most neo-Darwinians are zoologists, and so they study animals, and mostly mammals. And mammals, for the most part, do run around trying to stick their DNA into, the male mammals run around trying to stick their DNA into female mammals and compete with one another for the female's attention and all this. So, the competition, selfish gene theory is actually not that far off the mark. I mean, it's still not the entire truth of the matter. There is still cooperation among mammals and human beings, certainly, more so than any other animal species. So, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that the meme idea is useful, but it rests, to assume that it's based on the scientific truth about evolution and biology is a bit of a stretch, I think, because neo-Darwinianism is one field. You could almost say a field that has reached its peak and that is now being surrounded by other approaches that are showing themselves to be just as valid, just as explanatory, and really more, balanced in their way of understanding the dialectic between a culture trying to understand its biology. We can talk about biology as though it's this objective thing, this system of ideas that it has no, it's not tainted at all by our cultural values and beliefs and assumptions. But really, biology is always culture first. And unless we understand the relationship between our historical, socio-political context and the kind of science that we do and assume is true, then we're not doing science anymore. We're just making new ideologies based on evidence, sure, but there's lots of evidence, and usually it's contradictory to any particular theory or another, and that's why science progresses. So I've probably been rambling on a bit. I'm going to watch your video again and try to hit specific points, but it was such a good video that I figured I would probably have to make a few responses to it anyways. So we'll end this one here, and hopefully I'll pick up where I left off in a part 2.